Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex. I'm Dave Bryan from SteelersDepot.com, Season 12, Episode 86, and my co-host Alex Kozora is again not with me this week, so I will try to move this show along as best as I can without him. He is on the way back from Mobile, Alabama, from covering the Senior Bowl with three other contributors from Steelers Depot's site, and what a bang-up job they did down there in Mobile, Alabama. But I am pleased to be joined this morning, another roundtable session, if you will, from the three contributors from SteelersDepot.com that were out in Las Vegas and Sin City with me covering the East-West Shrine Bowl this past week. And that game obviously took place Thursday night, ended up being a very exciting and enjoyable game as far as all-star games go at that. I am, of course, talking about the great girl surgeon, Melanie Friedlander, Josh Carney, and Owen Straley. Got them, obviously, Melanie has been to Las Vegas a few times before, and I've had the opportunity to meet her and break bread with her previously. This was, however, the first time that I got to meet in person Josh Carney and Owen Straley, and what a treat it was for me to do that. We were able to break bread a couple of times as well. So with that, Melanie, Josh, and Owen, welcome back to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday, Dave, and thanks as always for letting us join you.
Yeah, happy Friday, and appreciate the best burger I've ever had from Sicky's Garage. Not once, but twice.
Yeah, the burgers were delicious. Absolutely. Thanks for having us on, Dave.
Absolutely. And as I mentioned, Melanie has been out to Vegas more than once, more than twice, in fact. So not new to her. The experience was new to her. It was, I believe, the first time out in Las Vegas for Josh and Owen. So first and foremost, let's start there. What did you think about your first trip to Las Vegas in general, Josh?
It was a little overwhelming, especially walking on the Strip. I think we did Friday night. We walked down to the Cosmopolitan, and just a ton of people, a lot of sights and sounds. Kind of overwhelming for a guy who is kind of a stay-at-home person, but definitely what I was expecting just in terms of the sights and sounds and just how busy it was. I think I tweeted Wednesday morning, I finally had my full Vegas experience because I came down to get breakfast and someone was passed out at the slot machine at 10 a.m. So, if I could have gotten a photo of the security guard, but he just looked like, oh, not again. Like, why my shift? Why my time? But a great experience. It was awesome being out there, and I truly appreciate the opportunity.
All right. So when can I expect you and the wife and the kids to move out here?
I might have to run that one up the pole there.
All right. Well, you definitely got to get back out here and bring the wife with you sometime and all like that.
Absolutely.
Owen, first, and Owen's a little bit younger, early 20s, so probably like a kind of a kid in a candy store for him.
It was definitely interesting. Like Josh was saying, we definitely saw some characters both at the hotel and on the Strip. We also went to a Vegas Knights game. I was honestly pleasantly surprised with the fan support they were getting out there for like what should kind of be like a transient fan base with people coming in and out. So I was impressed by that. And it was just honestly for me nice to escape the cold. There's about 20 something inches of snow here. So it was always a treat.
Absolutely. All right. With that, and first, I think it was the first time for all three of you covering such an event as an All-Star Week game, especially from a media perspective. There, Dr. Mel, first kind of impressions. I mean, having access to the players like that, and of the three of you, you were the one that stayed Thursday night and actually sat up in the press box of the new Allegiant Stadium there. Which, by the way, absolutely, what an incredible place that is. Looks like the Death Star from the outside. You can't miss it driving on the freeway there in Vegas there. So, Dr. Mel, just your overall impressions of kind of the whole process in general. How overwhelming was it, and how quickly did you find yourself kind of getting settled in there?
Maybe it's just my personality. I don't find myself getting overwhelmed in too many situations in life. I think it was an absolute treat. One thing I will say, Allegiant Stadium is absolutely impressive. And this is coming from someone who has been to SoFi in Los Angeles. They did everything right with the new Raiders Stadium. It is stunning. It is luxurious and user-friendly. And if you can get yourself there to see a game, do it. And, by the way, the Shrine Bowl game was a phenomenal opportunity for some of the local fans just to get inside the stadium. And a lot of folks who came yesterday told me that they really just wanted to see a game in the stadium and were thrilled for an opportunity to get some very reasonably priced tickets. So for anyone living in Las Vegas or visiting Las Vegas who wants to get inside that stadium, the Shrine Bowl is a really affordable way to do it. Just a tremendous opportunity to have access to the players. And I think that the Senior Bowl is probably much more competitive. I think I read there were over 900 media folks credentialed for that event. And the great thing about the Shrine Bowl is there aren't nearly as many media folks, and everyone here has been so accommodating. The Shrine Bowl staff, the players have been so generous with their time when we know that they are scheduled wall to wall every day. This is an exhausting week for them because they not only have the practice and the interview sessions, but they're in the classroom and in lectures throughout the day and evening. So for me, the most impressive aspect of this was, first of all, to just stand on the sidelines and watch practice. It was just a treat, I have to say. But then to speak with the players and really get their perspective was, for me, a fantastic opportunity.
Josh?
Yeah, I wasn't overwhelmed with the football side of things, that's for sure. Stepping into the Fertitta football complex that first day, it was just so well set up. The access, I said this to Owen before we left, like, I don't think I'd ever want to go to the Senior Bowl knowing that they had 900 media members. It's very tight in those media rooms. We sat in the Velvet Lounge of the Luxor, 4 days in a row or 3 days in a row. And I think we were one of maybe 5 media members up there. We had access to whatever player we wanted, for whatever length of time we wanted. And just being able to be on the sideline. I know that we showed up Monday to Allegiant Stadium and we were like, do we sit in the stands? Do we go down on the field? I think our press pass didn't actually have field access on it, but they let us down there and we were right there in the action. Just an awesome experience. I know that they had a lot of moving parts this week, but just blown away with the whole experience and it being in Vegas. And hopefully it's a bigger deal next year because there is a lot of talent and a lot of not only good football players, but great human beings that were there that we had a chance to talk to and really get to know over this last week.
I spotted the three of you on all 22 tape.
I do too. Hey,
that's how observant I am.
And just a quick side note, I could have been on the sidelines last night. That's really unbelievable access.
Owen, you're. I mean, obviously, for those that don't know, Owen, and what a good-looking kid he is. Oh my God! I can take him though. I measured him up first as soon as he got out of the car. I think I could take him. But strapping young kid plays football at Bates College there, and if you want a treat, go to the Bates Football College website and find Owen's player profile there, and you'll learn a little bit more about Owen there. But Owen, what are you going to? What are you majoring in college? And I think you're kind of trying to go the media route as well too there. So talk about that, and obviously you've been on the field, you've been on the other side of that. So what was it like to be on the other side of it, on the media side of it?
Yeah. So to answer the first one, in college, I'm a politics major right now. Not that I have too much interest in politics or working in politics, but I enjoy writing, and it's just a lot of papers. It's not something I'm too bad at. And as for just being on the field, I think I remember me and Josh were first looking at the schedule and seeing like the cluster interviews and stuff, and we had kind of imagined it like, I'd always seen like the Super Bowl press conference where it's like a bunch of guys battling to get up and get their questions. So when we were really able to just say, hey, I'd like to talk to Russ Yeast, I'd like to talk to Chase Lucas, and you get them one-on-one for 20 plus minutes, can really ask them any kind of question you want. And as Mel touched on too, the players were just so generous with their time and were really responsive to the questions we were asking. So that was awesome. And then, just being on the field, you see some guys like, Kentucky's Marquel Mccall, who's 340 pounds, looks even bigger in person. So it's just kind of seeing the raw size of some of these guys and how well they were moving at their size. I thought you could really take it in at the field level.
But yeah, I think Dr. Mel tweeted out there. She has a picture. I forget the two players that she took a picture with. But man, Dr. Mel, how tall are you?
I just barely broke 5 feet, and standing next to Bam Olasani and Myron Cunningham, someone actually said it looked like the Shrine logo, and they weren't wrong.
What a treat that was. And before we get started here, not that you need dating apps, but dating app suggestions for Alex Kozora.
Oof. I think Alex hit on a couple of them the other day. I heard him. He said he wasn't a big Tinder guy. I think he mentioned he was into Hinge a little bit. So I'll let Alex, decide on his own. I'm not the arbiter of great advice here.
All right, enough with the introductions and the preamble and the AAA suggestions part of the show there.
Dave, there might be another business avenue for you. Bloggers only.
Hey, there you go. You never know. I need to find a way to clone myself first and foremost. Although my wife would probably put an end to that real quick to any process that included that happening there. All right, let's get to the more important show. This is the part where you tell the people how good looking Dave is and what a great human being he is. Who would like to go first? No. We're of course going to talk about the Shrine Bowl here and talk about players specifically. And I think the best way maybe to go through this is start, kind of position group here. And I want to first get, get feedback from each position group. 3 or 4 names maybe of who impressed you the most. And then within that kind of, knowing the Steelers and kind of knowing maybe the kind of players and positions that they're looking for, who would probably be a best fit for the Steelers. Because look, every year the Steelers have you look at their draft classes over the year, they obviously include, maybe an underclassman or two, which obviously did not go to the Shrine, or go to the college all-star games. But they obviously include a, heavy selection of Senior Bowl attendees and 1 or 2 Shrine Bowl players as well too. And if they don't draft those guys, a few of those guys end up, undrafted free agent types. And in fact, a lot of the kids that probably played in, that participated in the Shrine Bowl this past week are probably going to end up the undrafted free agent route. But, a good portion of them will also get drafted as well too. So let's start on the offensive side of football, and let's start at kind of the quarterback position there. Obviously, the Steelers probably aren't going to draft any of the quarterbacks that were at the Shrine Bowl. Never say never, but if they are to draft a quarterback, one would think it would likely be in the earlier rounds of this draft, specifically the first or second round. But I know Mel, and props to Mel too, because she was kind of not only kind of new to this process, but we just allowed her access to the back end of kind of the editing side. And not too long ago, she had to play with that end of it. And boy, by the end of the week, she was sending me cut-ups of tape and all like that. So very, very impressive from that aspect. But Mel, I know a couple, I think you had a post on EJ Perry, who ended up being one of the MVPs of the game last night. And what a great couple of drives he put together at the end there. And I think you were kind of fixated overall and thinking, EJ Perry might be the best quarterback in that group. And I think De'Aaron King from Miami, I think he dropped out there at some point there. But just talk about kind of the quarterbacks in general, Mel, and maybe a little bit more specifically about EJ Perry.
So I agree with you. I don't think any of these quarterbacks are going to be on the Steelers roster next season. Having said that, some of them might be late round picks or undrafted free agents that would add interesting depth to the position. So I did take a serious look at them. I think a few of them are projects that really didn't excite me. Derek King was listed as a quarterback and a wide receiver. I think I saw him take maybe one snap at wide receiver and he looked good. But I think he hurt his chances by trying to be that sort of switchblade or pocket knife. He's so much taller than me, but he looks so short in the pocket. I don't think he has whatever it takes that made Drew Brees so successful as a shorter quarterback. When he throws a pass from behind his offensive lineman, it looks like it's going to be tipped or grabbed by the defense 50% of the time. It's anxiety provoking. So I know that he's a big favorite coming into this Shrine Bowl. I really didn't get too excited watching him. EJ Perry was the guy that I kind of targeted right at the beginning. I got a lot of grief for that on Twitter initially because people said, oh, well, he's only from Brown. People forget that he was originally recruited to Boston College and he left just because he wanted to be a starter. I think he really made good progress during the week and settled down and showed what he had. He's a very smart player. He's got extensive football pedigree in his family, and I think that's helped him as far as his progression and training and understanding of the game. He looked good last night. And we also joked when he said he might run, a sub 4.5 in the 40, but he does have legs. He does have mobility. His goal is to use that to extend the play. He's not trying to be, a Lamar Jackson. Do I think he could be a starting quarterback in the NFL next year? No. But do I think he has tremendous potential? Yes. I'll let the other guys kind of chat on the remaining quarterbacks.
And what about that throw he made at the end of that game? That was the best throw of the game. That's probably what got him. What did he throw? 3? Did he have all 3 touchdown passes? I think in that game. I think he
did. He was third. He completed 13 of 18 attempts for 241 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a rating of 153.9.
And that last throw of his was the throw of the game, if you ask me. And that's probably what got him the offensive MVP award. Josh, anything to add on the quarterbacks this week?
Yeah, coming in, just knowing the roster that we were going to see, I wasn't too excited about really any of them. I know that I had mentioned on Twitter during weigh-ins that Dustin Crum had kind of caught my attention just on the brief tape that I had watched, but super underwhelming week from all the quarterbacks aside from EJ Perry. He was the one that I think I was the lowest on coming in, just because he didn't really blow me away with his stats in the Ivy League. But once you saw him up close, the ball came off of his hand much different than any of the other quarterbacks there. Really good mechanics, strong arm. He was pretty athletic. And the thing I liked about him was in practice, he was taking shots with his arm rather than guys like Kansas State's Skylar Thompson, Dustin Crum, De'Aaron King. They were pulling the ball down in team drills and scrambling with non-contact jerseys, which doesn't do anything for anyone. Whereas as Perry was pushing the ball down the field, trying to take chances, giving defenses looks, he looked like he was ahead of the game compared to some of the other quarterbacks in that room in Vegas. And a lot of it has to do with the background that he has in football. I believe his uncle is the coach at Brown. Just extensive, as Mel wrote in her piece. The other quarterback that I was pretty intrigued by the rest of the week was Notre Dame's Jack Cohn. He feels like a game manager, which is totally fine at this point. Kind of like a Matt Moore type. Someone had asked me that question on Twitter last night, and I agreed with it. That's a good comparison. Yeah, I think he won the Pat Tillman Award in Vegas for this week. He seemed like he picked up the playbook much faster than everyone else. He was smart with the football. He had a really good night last night. I think if Perry doesn't go off in the fourth quarter, Jack Cohn's probably your offensive MVP. either him or a guy we'll talk on later in Ty Chandler. But the quarterbacks were just super, super underwhelming. Some of them, it felt like they were so overwhelmed in practice that they were just taking check down after check down after check down, which I guess is the safe play. But in all-star format like that, I don't think you're going to get dinged too much if you're trying to fit footballs into windows. And a lot of these quarterbacks were just so safe and so worried about just making the right play instead of making a play, if that makes sense. But yeah, really, really impressed by EJ Perry last night. I know that, like I said, coming in, I was lowest on him. But you just see a different quarterback up close and in person. And that's a lot of credit to Mel too. She came in, mentioned him and stood by him. And I think I started to see it throughout the rest of the week. And I think Owen did too.
I think by the fourth quarter of that game, I think he got a good idea maybe what kind of the upside a guy like EJ Perry is. About the only thing I really kind of knew about Jack Cohen, I think, from coming in going into this weekend is obviously watching a lot of that Notre Dame tape. Wasn't he the quarterback there the last year that Chase Claypool was there?
No, I think he transferred in this year because he was at Wisconsin.
Oh, okay. I only had seen a little bit of tape on him. I think I remember in my notes putting something with Cohen about the arm strength there and having kind of questions about that overall there. But Owen, any thoughts on to add to the quarterback room there?
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to agree with Josh. It was an underwhelming week for most of the guys at the group. After day one, I kind of noticed early. I was like, all right. I mean, on defense, they got like 2 calls going right now, cover 1 and cover 3. So after day one, I checked that with Dallas Flowers and Sean Jolly, 2 of the cornerbacks on the East roster that I interviewed. They were both like, yep, only playing 2 coverages. So at that point, I was like, any good quarterback, obviously they're picking up a playbook, but you should be able to get a good pre-snap look at what the defense is in. And it's like, the second it's snapped, I mean, you see man, you know what they're in. You see zone, you know what they're in. They went on to add some cover 2 later in the week. But just in terms of, identifying and like knowing where you can take some shots at weak spots in the defense, I thought that was pretty underwhelming for most of the guys. Dustin Crum and Skylar Thompson in particular, as well as De'Aaron King, felt like a lot of time they would see their first read not there and tuck it and run, even in like a 7v7 setting, which is a little frustrating to watch as an observer because it's like, there's the balls, we're getting no contested balls downfield, and there's really no reason to be showing your running ability in a 7v7 setting where there's no one to rush you. So there's no real opportunity to show that you can extend the play. I'd agree that as the week continued, EJ Perry definitely improved. Day 3, he took a nice hole shot against cover 2 to Nick Muse, manipulating the corner Jacoby Durant down to the flat with his eyes. So I thought that was good, just showing some ability to manipulate defenders with his eyes. He took some shots downfield, took a couple shots up the seam against cover 3. And you saw last night too, he was definitely willing to push the ball around and more mobile than I thought he would be. Surprisingly mobile. So I think overall, if there's a guy that at least has some intrigue as a late round to mid round prospect, it would be Perry. I didn't really think any of the other quarterbacks caught my eye too much.
I think the one thing last night from that game, Brock Purdy, I thought it ended up being incomplete over to the right pylon of the end zone there. Had one nice deep shot in that game, but really that's all that I saw out of him. So all 3 of you agreed that EJ Perry was the quarterback of the week down there?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean,
okay. If I can just add one last quick thing, he did show really nice situational awareness, and that's something that you want to see. I mean, when he knew he needed to get 2 scores to win that game, he was hustling the ball to the official between plays and really trying to save clock.
All right, running back position. A couple of them stuck out in that game last night. Let's kind of quickly fly through. There, we'll start, Josh, with you on the running back position. There are a couple of guys that had good weeks there, and a couple of guys that might interest the Steelers. Because look, I mean, make no bones about it. They got a guy in Najee Harris. Obviously, he's going to be their bell cow there. A lot of questions on that depth chart behind Najee Harris, especially if they don't want him to have the kind of workload that he had during his rookie season there. Josh, talk about these running backs.
Yeah, really intrigued by a guy like Ty Chandler coming in, former 5-star recruit, had started out at Tennessee. Once the Butch Jones era kind of fell apart at Tennessee, he transferred to North Carolina. He took over for personal draft favorite last year in Devontae Williams. He was, in my opinion, the best running back here this entire week. He just exploded with the football on any touch. I know that when we talked to him, I think it was on a Saturday, he mentioned he wanted to show his ability to catch the football out of the backfield. And as soon as we went to Allegiant Stadium, you saw him start to take over as a pass catcher out of the backfield. He really caught my eye. The guy that surprised me Thursday night in the game was Florida State's Desean Corbin. We didn't see anything from him throughout practice. Granted, it's hard to see much, in a team setting like that in practice where you're kind of just trying to give looks. And he stuck out in a big way. A lot of powerful runs, good contact balance Thursday night. I need to dive a little deeper into his tape, but it was Ty Chandler, Desean Corbin, USC's Keontae Ingram. I think up close, he is so smooth with the football. He's a smooth route runner, just very smooth in and out of his cuts. Did not see him last night, but I think the West very clearly had the best running back roster. A guy that I think all three of us liked coming in was Baylor's Treston Ebner. Didn't see much from him throughout the week. But Ty Chandler is the guy right now that I have circled as a potential fit in Pittsburgh. I think he'd be an ideal number 2 behind Najee because he brings that change of pace, but he's still a bit of a power back. And I think he made himself a lot of money this week because a lot of people were talking about him.
Who was it? Pierre Strong, South Dakota State kid, had
yes.
that long catch and run last night there, and broke into the gritty after that. How do you do, fellow kids?
It was interesting with Pierre Strong because I think he won. He was named the practice player of the week for the East. Speaking for myself, I watched the running backs pretty closely, and I didn't see much from Pierre throughout the week. So maybe it was off the field stuff, but yeah, he had a great night last night. He's a name that's starting to get a lot of buzz. Is probably going to be productive. And that screen pass, it was like, I wonder if he could do that in Pittsburgh. Probably not because the Steelers just cannot run screens. But it was nice to see him get out in space, make some guys miss and show off his speed overall.
Owen, running back room?
Yeah, I'd have to agree. Definitely Ty Chandler was the one that stood out for all of us. I think with a guy like Najee, he's got some patience to his game. He's got some power to his game. But I think what Ty Chandler could bring to Pittsburgh if he was potentially selected, he's that one-cut runner who can quickly get downhill. And he finishes pretty well at contact, too. He talked about, improving as a pass catcher, and that was one of the things he was working on going to the next level. I thought throughout the week we saw both good hands and some pretty good route running when matched up on linebackers and beating zone coverage as well. As for Pierre Strong, I thought throughout the week he made a lot of plays as a pass catcher, not so much as a runner. But as I mentioned, they played a lot of cover one. And when the quarterbacks were able to identify cover one, it would traditionally be a linebacker on the running back. And he'd usually get picked by one of the receivers coming in on like a stop route or something. So that combined with either a wheel or a swing from the back was getting a lot of receiving yards for Pierre Strong, a lot of yak. So I thought he showed some good stuff out of the backfield throughout the week. But yeah, those are really the two big ones that I thought. But Chandler especially, we wanted to see him, what he could do as a pass catcher. And he's kind of talked about how he didn't think he got as much of an opportunity in college to show his ability in that aspect. So it was nice both in the game and in practice to just see him kind of improve and grow as a route runner.
Dr. Mel, I think didn't you talk to Isaiah Pacheco?
I did. He's a young man that really impressed me throughout the week. And he just didn't get a lot of opportunities last night. Unfortunately, he didn't get too many attempts. And when he did, the defense of the West team did a nice job. He did have one really nice play that I saw, and I honestly don't remember which quarterback it was. I'd have to go back and look at the All-22, but his quarterback was under pressure, scrambling, and he just, got himself open and made the play and got positive yards. And it was a totally broken down play. So it was a nice heads up on him. And he did what I thought was a phenomenal fake on the 2-yard attempt where E.J. Perry ran into the end zone. I literally thought he had the ball for like a second. just going back to Tyler Chandler and again, like we've all been so high on him all week long. I had a chance to talk to Jennifer King, who was his running backs coach this week, and you don't see them doing really any pass protection in this situation. But I asked her, what she thought about him in that role, and she really praised his football IQ, thought he could be a 3-down back, and that put in that situation in the NFL, he would be solid. We will have a full interview on Chandler going up probably next week.
All right. Now, I think the great Cynthia Friedlander from she does a great job, and they didn't use her nearly enough in that broadcast last night, just kind of going over the statistical and nuts and bolts. But she had commented about him and his pass protection, and I haven't looked at that aspect of his tape yet, and have only just seen kind of the highlights of Chandler overall. I was disappointed to see him put the football on the ground on that one time. So during that game, so obviously got to have some ball security there. But from what I understand from reading what you guys wrote this week and what little bit of tape and obviously watching some of the all 22 that have come out of practice there, Ty Chandler seems to be the cream of the crop coming out of this class or this senior or Shrine Bowl class here, and probably the guy that I think all of you would rank as number one coming out of this week.
Yeah.
For sure. But one other guy I'd like to give a little honorable mention to is Ratkovich. He's a fullback, and he had a nice night last night. I mean, that the punt turnover where it hit the East player and he scooped it up to get the West the ball back really deep in the East team's end zone was a heads up play. He will probably be a very strong guy on special teams.
And he, of course, is a Northern Illinois product, 6004 231. Probably either a late round or undrafted guy there. All right, wide receiver group. Look, I mean, the Steelers did not draft any wide receivers last year. They've got a couple of guys going to be unrestricted free agents, not guaranteed to be back, in Juju Smith-Schuster and James Washington. James Washington's gone. I mean, gone. It'd be a shock if James Washington is back. Juju probably 50-50 whether or not he returns. Regardless, the Steelers, go ahead and write it down right now, are likely going to draft a wide receiver this year. So within that, Owen, I'm going to start with you on this one here. You've covered a few wide receivers at Bates College there, so you probably have a good perspective at looking at them on the other side of the ball there. Talk a little bit about this wide receiver room overall.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought the wide receiver room might have been the best position there, honestly, in terms of talent. A couple guys that stood out to me. First and foremost, Tulsa's Josh Johnson. Right away, I mean, he was just so easy for him to separate both against press coverage and off coverage in 1v1s, and then in the team setting as well. He's just kind of that Deontay Johnson, not the level of Antonio Brown, but the Antonio Brown mold in terms of just ability to quickly get in and out of his cuts and create separation at the top of his routes. So particularly on out routes, stop routes, he's going to be that guy that can get open on intermediate to shallow routes and is going to be a great weapon on third down. He had a good night last night, 4 catches for 98 yards. Charleston Rambo from Miami, who we also got a chance to talk to, he had a nice week. Showed that ability we've been talking about for the Steelers, get that Z-type receiver who can separate, win downfield, and win at the catch point downfield. Thought Rambo showed a lot of that, particularly in some earlier practices. Samori Torre from Nebraska, 5 receptions for 32 yards and 2 touchdowns last night. He also, talking to Dallas Flowers from Pitt State and Sean Jolly from Appalachian State, 2 corners on Tuesday's final practice. They were both sitting out with injury, and both of them were like, this Torre kid is the best receiver here. So I definitely value their opinions, and he definitely had a good week, showing his ability to win in a variety of ways. Kyle Phillips from UCLA was dominating in the slot all week. I think he could be, a good mid-round pick for somebody, just going to consistently be able to win in the slot at the NFL level, make tough catches on third down. And then for the West, 2 guys that stood out were Mel's guy, Tyquan Thornton from Baylor. He also showed the ability to win downfield, had some pretty good speed to his game, it seemed, and was a pretty good route runner for someone of his stature. He's a little bit leaner. I kind of compared him to Robbie Anderson in terms of both his frame and kind of would be my pro comparison to his game.
That's a good one. Now that you say that, that's a good one because he does have that slight kind of thinner frame there. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. He's he's definitely could stand to add some weight at the NFL level, but he's got some good bounce to his game too at the catch point. And then finally, Tay Martin from Oklahoma, who had 4 receptions for 47 yards last night. Really, really impressed me with his ability to both win off the line with quickness and physicality. He's a little bit older at about 24, I think, entering the league right now, but he's going to be a name to watch as well.
Dr. Mel, you were pretty big on Thornton coming into this week. Small hands don't care, right?
That's true. And I have a feeling that all of your listeners have no doubt about how I feel about him. There's really not a lot I can add. I think that Owen and Josh said it beautifully. Actually, Josh hasn't gone yet. My apologies. Owen laid it out perfectly. I mean, this is the strongest position group at the Shrine Bowl without a doubt. And the only other one I would add to that list probably would be Stanley Berryhill. He's from Arizona Wildcats, and they had a bad season. He's been very much under the radar. I don't know if he's fast enough to find a home in Pittsburgh for what they need, but I think he could be a contributor at the NFL level. He was interesting.
Josh, most likely to be drafted out of these Shrine Bowl wide receivers for the Steelers, and why?
Ooh, man, that's tough. Probably Charleston Rambo, just for his ability to be that Z. He can play in the slot. I think he would be the most entertaining for the media to deal with because he does not lack confidence one bit. Owen and I talked to him, I believe it was Sunday in the middle of the championship games, and he just probably one of the funniest interviews I've ever done. He wasn't worried about anyone covering him in the NFL. He said he'll blow right past any of them. He dominated all week long. Any drill, he was the clear-cut number one receiver here. I don't know that I'd bet the house that he's going to be a Steeler, but most likely, yeah, I would go with him.
What do you think he's going to run?
I think he's going to be in that 4.5, 4.52 range. He's not overly explosive. He's just smooth in and out of his cuts. He knows how to set up defenders. He's not there yet, but he's kind of like a technical route runner. And he plays through contact well. I mean, we talked about slight frames with Tyquan Thornton. Charleston Rambo's not much bigger when you see him in person. He's got skinny legs, but he plays through contact very, very well and does not lack confidence one bit.
All right, tight end room. We'll move this right along as fast as we can here because I know Dr. Mel's got to catch a flight here after a while here. Jelani Woods out of Virginia. He showed up pretty good in that game last night. Was it Jelani Woods and then everybody else at the Shrine Bowl this week? Dr. Mel, I'll start with you. Or Lucas Kroll was there that week too, but he dropped out of the. He ended up not playing in the game, yeah. And a lot of our listeners probably already know a good bit about Lucas Kroll if they follow Pitt football.
Yeah, but I would take Woods over Kroll at this point. I mean, he is just a physical beast, and he looked rough for the first half of practice on Monday. But after that, boy, he's just a solid red zone target. He's got soft hands. He's catches almost everything they throw at him. And, he did put on the ground last night once, but other than that, I think anybody who watched the game can really see that he has tremendous NFL potential.
Owen, best all around tight end, guy that maybe if you're looking maybe 6th or 7th round, for a guy that, could be a backup tight end, blocker, play on special teams. Who's that guy?
Yeah, I think I had a good interview with Nick Muse from South Carolina, younger brother of Tanner Muse. He definitely, admittedly, is going to have to work a little bit on his blocking. He struggled in the pass protection drills earlier in the week, so he was really saying that was a big piece of his game he's going to have to improve. But he showed a lot this week in terms of ability to win both in one-on-ones against some safeties as well as find some holes up the seam. He had a cover 2 hole shot touchdown along the sideline and was really, really good using his body in the red zone, his large frame, large catch radius to go up on some DBs. So I thought he impressed me. And he was an interesting guy. And then we Chig from Maryland. He didn't really record any stats in the game, but he was an interesting guy if you want more of that kind of H-back move tight end that we talk about. He'll be able to, get some split zone coming across for you, and then also is going to be a good yak guy after the catch. He's got some speed to his game. So those would be the two, I think, if you're looking for a kind of later round target.
Josh, anything to add into the tight end room there?
Yeah, Chig was a guy that, very interesting, obviously due to the Matt Canada connection that I had written about earlier in the week.
So everybody knows, give his full name there in school.
Chigozie Okonkwo. He went to Maryland. He was there as a freshman in 2018 when Matt Canada was the interim coach. Chig, interestingly enough, touched the ball 8 times as a freshman, found the end zone 4 of them. 3 rushing touchdowns, by the way. So he's a guy, I said this to Owen one night in the hotel room, reminds me of a guy like Orson Charles, if you remember that name, that H-back tight end combo. Chig was certainly undersized compared to the rest of the tight ends there. I think all of them were 6'4" and above, aside from Chig. He's a guy that was able to get up the seam well on Monday, scored a touchdown on a seam route from Jack Cohn. He's just a guy that I think could come in and kind of be that versatile weapon. But yeah, Jelani Woods, wherever he's projected right now, it feels like it's not high enough. He's a good route runner. He's that Planet Theory guy. First off the bus, it just feels like he can catch everything within his vicinity. It's a shame he went to Oklahoma State. That's that air raid offense. He had a better year at Virginia in more of a traditional pro style offense than he did at Oklahoma State. So he really impressed me this week. He's a guy I think is going to probably be the first tight end off the board from this group. Yeah.
Oh, from this
group. Yeah. Okay, from this group. But if there's a guy that I'd like to see the Steelers target aside from Chig, would be Nick Muse. Just because of it's easy to read the tea leaves there. He's also originally from William and Mary, as Owen wrote. So I'm sure Tomlin has some sense of understanding about him. But I think if there's a perfect fit, it would be Chig Okonkwo, because he can handle that H-back, that number 3 tight end role in it. Very interestingly enough, Maryland trusted him to handle, backside protection one-on-one with no help throughout the season. And he more than held his own. So that's a guy that I definitely have circled for not only his skill set, but his fit in a Matt Canada offense.
Pronounce his full name again, because Uncle Dave can't.
It's Chigozie Okonkwo.
God bless you. Offensive line. I'll start with you, Josh. Go back to you again, because I think you probably watch those kids quite a bit and looked at the offensive line drills and all like that. I think the thing that stuck out to me last night in that game, man, the West unit seemed to gel so quick during the week, and maybe it's because they had the better talent of the two teams overall there. But I'm guessing you probably thought more of the west side of the offensive line than the east team. But talk about a couple of guys that highlighted the week there.
Yeah, 2 guys that stood out from the West for me were North Dakota State's Cordell Volson and Baylor's Xavier Newman Johnson. Coming in, I had seen Volson's tape just because I've watched North Dakota State for Christian Watson in the past, but Volson was a guy that had started at right tackle the last 2 years, but interestingly enough, had moved to right guard for the playoff game this past year due to injuries along the offensive line. He gets to Vegas and they put him at left guard and right guard. I don't think he played much tackle at all this week. And for most guys, that can be a tough transition, but Cordell Volson dominated. I think he was the best lineman here by far. Very comfortable at left and right guard. He would stonewall guys in 1v1. Maybe not like a Trevor Penning at the Senior Bowl where he's throwing guys around, but Volson just had that strength where he could lock you up immediately. Had really good feet, used his hands very well, and definitely turned a lot of heads this week as a name that it feels like it is starting to generate a ton of buzz. Xavier Newman-Johnson, though, I think that was my favorite lineman of the week. Great interview with him. He comes in undersized. I know a lot of Steeler fans are going to hear an interior lineman undersized, not really having a home position-wise, and could probably turn the podcast off at this point. But Newman-Johnson was the real deal. I thought he had a great night Thursday, showed a lot of his abilities. He switched between left and right guard throughout the game. I think he even took some center reps late in the game. I'd have to go back and see the all-22 there, but he's just a powerful guy, has great feet, really athletic. And the great thing about him, he mentioned to us in the interview, he had to learn 4 different playbooks in 4 years, doing that at 3 different positions. So he's a smart guy. He was a team leader. Teammates have raved about him. He's a guy I have circled. I know he's under 6'2", but the measurables do not match up with the tape. He plays much bigger than his size, much longer than his size. That was a guy that certainly impressed. And then one other guy that just caught my attention late in the week was Florida's offensive tackle, Jean Delance. Jonathan Heitritter and I had gone back and forth in DMs throughout the week because Jonathan had worked with him when he was in Florida. Delance, great length, good feet, really good power. I think he led the team in pancake blocks. So I was talking to an assistant coach, and they were kind of tracking that just for their own use. But he was burying guys throughout the week. He was very physical, but very quiet as well. So that's a guy that I have on my watch list moving forward.
Owen, best tackle there this week. Best pure tackle.
Best pure tackle. Let's see. I mean,
Ryan Van Denmark showed up a little bit, but in some drills. But that's all I really watched of him. I haven't watched any of his tape.
Yeah, I was hearing some good buzz around Denmark. Let's see, the two for the East that I had listed on my winners, both were serving on the interior, but was Bam Olaseni and Brock Hoffman. But yeah, I was hearing some good stuff from Van Denmark. I didn't get too much of a chance, to be completely honest, to check out O-line, D-line one-on-ones as much as I would have wanted to. I was with the receivers and DBs more, but I would definitely agree just in terms of the game setting. The West was definitely getting a push up front, and it kind of felt that way all week in general. The East practice, I would say the D-line kind of dominated at the line of scrimmage, and it was tough for the East O-line to generate much push up front. West was kind of the opposite, especially in goal line and red zone sessions. They had a really easy time just creating push and finding holes for their running backs. So just in terms of an overall unit, I'd say the West had a better week, but there was some interesting names coming out of that. If there was one guy that I think both versatility and play-wise stood out this week, I'd agree it was definitely Cordell Volson.
Okay.
Looked good at pretty much every spot he was at, and from what I saw from the tape, he was pretty good in one-on-ones too.
Dr. Mel, anything to add to the offensive line talk here before we switch over to the other side of football? Dr. Mel?
Oh, sorry. I think they covered it well.
Okay, let's go to the defensive side of football here. Defensive line here. Obviously, the Steelers could be in the market for, maybe a backup defensive tackle there to kind of play over that nose, or another 4-eye tech here. We'll start. Dr. Mel, anything initial to get the talk started there on the defensive line?
Well, I think the standout of the week has to be Matthew Butler. From Tennessee. He impressed throughout practice. I was disappointed we did not get to see him play last night because I think it would have been a treat. And I do tend to defer to Josh and Owen when it comes to the defense, because they are head and shoulders above me at this point in the game. So I'm curious to hear what they think.
All right, we'll go to Owen. Owen, anybody stick out in sort of those offensive line, maybe defensive line drills of maybe what you watch? I know you focused a lot on the secondary there. Any overarching thoughts on some defensive line guys?
Yeah, so I'd agree. I thought Butler was an intriguing prospect as the week continued. He's a guy with good size. Could probably play both the 3-tech or 5-tech in Pittsburgh if you needed him to. Use a little 4-eye as well, but he could be good in both a 3-4 or a 4-3, I think. He probably could give you some a bit of ability to push the pocket and pass rush too in sub packages. My favorite guy from the week, honestly, at the D-line position was definitely Kentucky's Marquel Mccall. Came into this week.
Dude.
Yeah. He was 340 pounds is what he weighed in at this week. Apparently, he played his season earlier this year at closer to like 370. So he's a big guy. He looks every bit of it in person. But since he's dropped the weight, he's also got some quickness out of that 0-1 tech position. So, yeah, he had at least 1 to 2 plays this week where he was able to just knife through and quickly tag the quarterback before the play was over. Had a couple goal line stops as well. And he was pretty animated after making a couple goal line stops. It was just good to see the passion from him. And I think really in terms of Pittsburgh, moving forward, you got Alu. I thought Montravius Adams showed some as kind of that, quicker sub-package guy this year. I think in terms of run defense, you could definitely still get that kind of big plugger in there. So McCall could definitely fill that role. And then going towards the edge position, I really liked Jeff Gunter coming into the week from Coastal Carolina. He was part of that turnaround defensively there in their move to the FBS. He's not exactly refined yet as a pass rusher, but I think he's got some good tools, good athleticism. He's already pretty good against the run, does a good job kind of taking on pulling guards, and can make some plays in the backfield as well. But he talked to me in our conversation just about how if he can continue to improve his hand usage as a pass rusher, he thinks his get-off's already pretty good, and he thinks he could be an impact player there at the next level. So those would be my 2 on the D-line.
Josh, you probably spent the most time studying this group overall. One guy that jumped out to me in a little bit here was I'm intrigued about, and especially from a measurable standpoint, is Ioma Zaraki, Iowa State. How did I do with the name pronunciation there? 6'0", 319 pounds. Kind of projects as kind of that 4'5", 5 tech at the NFL level there. Anything to add to this defensive line group talk?
Yeah, so it's Owuzarike. You got the first name right, but
all right.
Yeah, so 50%. Well done. I'll tell you what, I think he was the most physical defensive lineman here until he sat out. I think he sat out starting Monday. So he missed both practices at Allegiant Stadium and then didn't play last night, I believe. He was the most physical. He was the guy mixing it up with guys, after the play. He's the measurables guy. He played on the edge at times at Iowa State too, which is a little terrifying to think of. But Marquel Mccall is that fire hydrant in the middle, that short, squatty guy, a ton of power. Everyone seems to be talking up Travis Jones from UConn at the Senior Bowl because of how he moves. But I think when people get to Marquel McCall's tape, they're going to see the same guy that can be had at a lower draft value. He dominated a lot of team reps throughout the week. I know that he and Brock Hoffman actually got into it at one point. So McCall is a guy that could come in and kind of be that 3-4 nose tackle and base and help the run defense. It could also play some reps where he's that 4-eye, maybe rush the passer. I love Matthew Butler. He played all over the defensive line. I just don't know where his home is in the NFL in terms of, technique and all that. But he's a guy he walked into the room in the players lounge. And I think Owen and I looked at each other and was like, holy crap, that guy is massive. And he played like it throughout the week. But other than those guys, nothing really stood out to me from the defensive line. I was a little disappointed. We didn't get to see LeBrian Ray until the game. I thought he had a decent night last night, but he did not practice at all, which was very interesting. And it feels like a serious risk he took. But McCall is the guy that I have circled right now as someone I think would be a really, really good fit in Pittsburgh.
All right, and carry that over into the edge rusher. Who is the best edge rusher guy that maybe would fit as a 3-4 outside linebacker with the Steelers? A guy that could play on his feet, maybe be kind of a late round guy.
Yeah, I think Owen touched on it. Jeffrey Gunter, really explosive guy, really good hands, ton of power. One guy that really impressed me throughout the week was Western Michigan linebacker Ali Fayed.
I agree. He stuck out and he loved that speed. He likes that spin move.
Yes, he likes the spin move. He hit the ghost rush a few times on Bam Olaseni in one-on-ones. He also was able to drop into coverage, made a few plays in pass coverage throughout the week. I think he led the FBS in sacks last year with 14. So that's a name to watch. One guy that I think is being forgotten about right now, and it's because he played off-ball linebacker this week, Jackson State's James Houston. I think he led the FCS in sacks with 16 this past season. He's a little undersized, but he transitioned pretty well to off-ball linebacker in Las Vegas this week, but definitely flashed in individuals his ability to rush the passer. That's a guy, if you want to circle just for his versatility within the linebacker room, he could be an intriguing late round guy.
Let's go over to the off the ball linebacker group, the guys that project maybe as 3-4 inside linebackers for the Steelers specifically. There, Josh, you were on the Diego Fagot train early in the week there, and I don't think that kid disappointed there. I don't know what his status is with the Navy and being drafted and all, but this is a kid that jumped on the map. I think in the at least to me on the Army and Navy game for sure, and I think he was probably the most vocal guy according to what your reports know, and a guy that you could not help but notice during the week of practices and the game as well.
Yeah, so I did ask him about his draft status, and in 2019 there was an act passed where these military academy guys, if they get drafted, they can go and pursue their professional career and they can defer their service time. So he's good to go if a team does decide to take a chance on him. But yeah, 4-year starter at Navy, 3-year captain. He comes in. It's a new playbook in a sense. It might be very basic, but that guy did not stop talking between the whistles, getting guys, lined up in the right spots. There was a different sense to him. Very prepared, very vocal, very comfortable doing that. And I think he was the most physical defender on the field. I know that they were doing, the one touch or just the pop pads, but he was coming downhill and hitting people. I know I posted that clip of him hitting Isaiah Pacheco. That really ignited the team. But yeah, I had questions about him in pass coverage, and he had questions himself about his ability to drop. But he looked very comfortable doing it. He made some plays in pass coverage throughout the week. He just was constantly around the football, and that's kind of what you look for in an inside linebacker. I think he fits better in a 4-3 than a 3-4, but I made this comparison to Owen when we first got there. He's going to be a special teams demon, and he reminds me very much of Larry Izzo, if people remember that name. I think he can be a special teams captain for a very, very long time in the NFL because he's relentless.
Anybody else stick out, maybe Steeler potential as far as an off-the-ball inside linebacker, late-round guy whatsoever?
Yeah, so Chance Campbell from Ole Miss really impressed me, his ability to play in coverage. He's 6'2", 233, had, I think, 2 interceptions throughout the week. He just moves very, very well, very comfortable dropping into space. He needs to work on his ability to read his keys in front of him and fire downhill against the run. He was a step late at times, but I kind of like him for his ability to drop and play in coverage. Jack Sanborn is a guy I'm sure they're going to like. He kind of reminds me of a Robert Spillane type, really physical downhill, has some struggles in pass coverage, but just a really sound tackler. Other than that, Balin Spector, he kind of stood out at times. He had a one-handed interception. I say that because he had a club on the other hand, so somehow made that play. But yeah, it felt like a light linebacker room aside from Diego Fagot. Colorado's Nate Landman ended up sitting out the final day of practice, didn't see the field again. Arizona State's Darian Butler, I think, was the 4th ranked linebacker in coverage this past year from Pro Football Focus, but he is severely undersized. I think he's 5'9", 230. I think he was listed as. So it was a light linebacker room overall. I think there's maybe a few that will get drafted and maybe one that fits, and that's Chance Campbell.
All right, let's move and finish it up with the defensive back
Dave,
group.
Let me just jump in really quick on Balin Spector. For the fans hearing that he had a big splint on his wrist, he had wrist surgery in December for a fracture that he had been playing through. And he is expected to have a full recovery. So I do not see that being an issue.
All right, good info there. Let's go to the defensive backfield. That's right up Owen's alley there. I love to hear Owen talk about these defensive backs. And there's a guy in there with a last name that should be familiar to Steelers fans that I think a few of you got to talk to this week. So let's combine the safety and the cornerback talk together. And I think Owen has a new best friend too. And I think it's a Pittsburgh kid, but not Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It's the other Pittsburgh in the Midwest there. Owen, the floor is yours to talk about these defensive backs.
Yeah, so you mentioned Quentin Lake. I thought he had a really, really good week. He's pretty good. I think he's going to be more of that box safety at the NFL level, but he's got some range if you want to play him in the post too. Specifically playing in some flat zones in cover 3. He does a really good job of kind of moving around, taking up as much space as possible, and he hits very well when he comes downhill. Going into one-on-ones as well. Him and Russ Yeast, Kansas State.
Yeast had a quiet. I mean, it was a productive yet quiet night last night. I mean, he had a lot of tackles. In fact, I think he was one of the 9 players that I asked you guys to identify 3 each, and I think Owen, you identified him, and if I'm not mistaken, I think he led in tackles there last night, or pretty close to it there. But carry on.
Yeah, so I think when I look for safeties, kind of at the modern level, man coverage is something I value very heavily, particularly in Pittsburgh where, Terrell Edmunds, a lot of times they'll run that kind of cover 1 nickel pressure. Terrell Edmunds has to roll down and be a cap man coverage defender over the slot. So Russ Yeast was a guy right away where he's about 5'10", 192. His college tape shows that he's not afraid to hit. So if you're looking for that nickel type guy to maybe replace some of what Mike Hilton gave you, I think that's a guy who they could stay paying attention to.
Is he the one that blisters out that has a lot of off the cat call off the edge that screams with that? I mean, he's got a good he's got a great jump off the edge, doesn't he?
Absolutely.
As a blitzer.
Absolutely. And he was the only defensive back this week that played boundary corner on both sides. He played some nickel, and he played both free and strong safety.
Wow.
So he showed a lot of versatility this week. More at the corner position, I thought the East had some really talented guys. Dallas Flowers from Pittsburgh State, 6'1", 195, showed a lot of ability in press man coverage. He's lengthy, about a 78-inch wingspan. So he showed some ability to both frustrate receivers at the line of scrimmage and press coverage, as well as some ability to carry them downfield with speed and use his length downfield. So I think he profiles really well for both single high scheme where you're going to run some cover 1 and cover 3, as well as I was particularly impressed with his work in zone coverage when they went into cover 2 on day 3. And then Jacoby Durant, who got some praise from Deion Sanders actually after his performance in the Celebration Bowl against Jackson State. He also had 2 picks this year against Clemson. He's a little bit undersized at 5'9", 174, but he showed a lot of ability to get up and challenge receivers in man coverage this week. Reed Blankenship from Middle Tennessee State also showed some ability to come downhill and make plays coming downhill. I think he might be best served to add some weight and become a sub-package linebacker at the next level. Just was a little slow getting around in the post, so I don't know how much he could, succeed in that role at the next level. And then one last guy I would definitely give a shout out to is Kalyn Barnes from Baylor. And he was really one of the only guys I saw challenge Tay Martin in 1v1 reps all week. Another guy who he's about 5'11", but wingspan's a lot lengthier than his height. He's able to challenge receivers both at the line of scrimmage and is really good downfield. I thought he might have had the best ball skills downfield of anyone. Him and Jacoby Durant probably in that department at the cornerback position. So he's going to be a guy to watch, I think. Had a pretty productive career at Baylor as well.
All right, one to finish it up, Owen, 1 mid-round to late round corner, 1 mid-round to late round safety out of this Shrine Bowl group that you could see wearing the black and gold for the Steelers.
Okay. Safety first. I think Yeast is the perfect guy that I think they could fall in love with. This defense is predicated around having that guy who can blitz and play man coverage out of the nickel. The Bengals run a lot of 11 personnel, and they will be able to run the ball out of 11 personnel by spreading you out. So it's important to be able to play nickel on, those early rundowns, the 2nd and 4s, things of that nature. So I think Russ Yeast is good in his ability to allow you to do that. And I really think Dallas Flowers is going to rise as this process goes. The Steelers seem to like corners with a little bit of height to them. And I'm not sure if he'd be, ready, jumping from he was an NAIA guy and now just jumped to the D2 level at Pittsburgh State this past season, had a productive year with 4 picks and 10 pass breakups. But I think if he's going to contribute anywhere early in his career, maybe not in Pittsburgh, since they seem to have an aversion with having defensive players return kicks and punts. He was a very good kick returner at the college level, and me and Josh both had in our notes that he looks pretty natural fielding both kicks and punts this week at practice.
Interesting. Josh or Mel, anything to add to the defensive back talk there?
I think Percy Butler is a name that we shouldn't forget. I don't know that he's that nickel player that, Owen kind of was mentioning with Russ Yeast, but Percy Butler, I think, is a guy that could be extremely valuable on special teams. Over 1,000 snaps in his collegiate career on special teams. Very, very highly thought of when it comes to that side of the football. But he also, at least what I saw in 1v1, he really held his own against some bigger tight ends. I think it was Tegan Quintario and was it Nick Muse? I think Owen was standing next to me. I think it was Nick Muse.
He had a breakup on Muse.
Yeah, he plays. He's a physical safety. He definitely knows that he's going to make his money at the next level on special teams. But he's also a 3-year starter at safety for the Raging Cajuns. Little undersized, but he packs a punch when he comes downhill, and he's just very sound overall with his footwork. But Dallas Flowers though was the guy that I think Owen and we didn't see it at first, but then we watched the All-22 from the first practice and continued to watch him live. It was like, this guy can definitely play.
Dr. Mel, anything to add with the defensive back group?
No, I think these guys have summed it up nicely.
All right. I had a question here from Chad Prince via the email machine asking about Wanye Thomas's performance yesterday. Do you think he'll stay at safety in the NFL or will he add weight and possibly move to linebacker? I noticed in his bio he has some kick return experience, which is unusual for a 250-pound safety. Anybody want to comment on Thomas?
Yeah, he was another guy who impressed me this week in 1v1s. I thought, along with Yeast and Lake, he was probably the third best safety in terms of his ability to play some man coverage on the slots. He showed some ability to press the slots as well. I think he did look better when I saw his reps in the box in team sessions than he did as that deep safety, but he's got pretty good ball skills. He made some plays as the week went on. I don't think he's I wouldn't view him as a candidate to move to linebacker. I think, if anything, more of a box safety at the NFL level who's going to give you some ability to play man coverage, pretty good tackler, and could also probably similar type of guy that could do some blitzing out of the nickel, I think.
All right, final thoughts here. Let's get wrapping this up and get Dr. Mel downstairs to the Uber there. Dr. Mel, I'll give you the floor before you cut out here. Final thoughts on this past week.
Just a really interesting opportunity for so many players who have been under the radar and, could very well be going in the draft on the third day. Are we going to see these guys starting in the NFL next year? Probably not. But could they add value to the depth chart and special teams? Absolutely. And it's just such a nice opportunity for them, to get some exposure and for the teams and the scouts to have a chance to meet them. I can't say enough about what remarkable young men these are. Ask any one of them and they all have an interesting backstory and how hard they've worked to get to this point. You have to give them so much credit when it's not even a sure thing.
All right, Josh, final thoughts on the week in general.
Just an awesome week overall. Credit to Eric Galco and the rest of the Shrine Bowl staff for putting this together. I know that this was the first year they did it in Vegas. There certainly were some hiccups at times, which was expected, but they did a fantastic job. I think they did an incredible job identifying talent, especially some of these small school guys like a Dallas Flowers that really, carved out a role moving forward, I think, for some NFL team. Even a Russ Yeast, he was a college gridiron showcase guy, and the Shrine Bowl pounced and got him up, and he more than held his own. But just really cool to be on the sideline and be around these guys for an entire week. You had some understanding of some of the bigger school guys coming into the week just based off of watching live and following along throughout the college football season. But just really getting to know these guys off the field and then seeing them up close in practice, I feel like I have a much better feel for some of these guys as prospects and how they will fit at the next level. So wonderful opportunity. Can't wait for next year. And hopefully we see one or two of these guys on a Steeler roster here soon.
Oh, and final thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. I think especially with the DB and receiver groups at this event, I think there's at least 4 to 5 guys at each position who will get drafted this year and are going to have some ability to contribute early on some rosters. And overall, I think outside of the quarterback position, as we talked about, the talent at this event was good. It was really eye-opening to see some of them up close in person, see their size, movement skills, and I feel like it allowed us to get a much better understanding of the prospects.
Well, look, you guys have been absolutely tremendous, fantastic work in Las Vegas this week. I couldn't be prouder of what the content that you put out here. Blessed to have you guys, you guys and girl on the Steelers Depot staff here, and I think I speak for everybody listening. Thank you for the great coverage. Look forward to more of this written stuff coming out of you for the rest of the week after we get the all 22 and go through that as well too. So, Dr. Mel, Josh, Owen, golf clap. More than a golf clap for me. Standing ovation for me for the job well done this week. I was so pleased to have you out here in my neck of the woods in Las Vegas on top of it as well. So let me wrap up the show here. Follow all these people on Twitter. Melanie Friedlander at Girl Surgeon. Josh Carney is at by, what is it, Josh? It's at by Josh Carney, B-Y, Josh Carney, and then Owen Straley is Owen Straley, S-T-R-A-L-E-Y 21 on the Twitter machine. Thank you all. You can obviously follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. You know how you want to, if you want to donate, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button. Also, if you like the ad-free version of the site, you can get that there as well, too. So with that, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.